Welcome to Conversation for the Soul. I'm Alleson Gregary, and today we are here with Anne Ferrel-Cox and Joy Anderson. And hi, everybody. This is our monthly little chat where we're just going to talk about whatever comes up. And we were just talking before we got on here on what a crazy month it's been.
For myself, I'm just using a little Palo Santo to clear the busy morning. It was a family morning, which I absolutely love. And last year I made a commitment to make my family the focus of the next 2 years. And once I made that commitment, holy smokes, did the divine manifest that for me. I am inundated with grandkids and dogs and children and extended family, soul family, you name it.
Oh, wonderful.
It has been absolutely wonderful. But at the same time, I'm trying to balance my current task of writing and still working sessions for people. So my journey right now is working on balance. So
I think we're all doing that. I think that's called embodiment. Like Cecilia, my mentor, isn't always at her retreat center now. She's in a transition because her husband passed away. And she said, Anne, I didn't feel very holy. I think that's called embodiment, right? When you have to balance the human life instead of being in a contemplative lifestyle. So it is, I think we're all learning how to do that.
It's so hard. I can't even with my phone calendar. And when I have photography jobs, it's like, I have to look at it multiple times before the next day going, what do I have going on? I can't keep track of time. I can't keep track of days.
Yeah, exactly. No, it either has to be downstairs or coloring. We're just creating boundaries. And I'm very good with family boundaries. And that's part of it. You know, creating the boundary within your spiritual life and also creating boundaries, strong boundaries with the family so that you have a personal life. Mm-hmm.
We're living in this RV and we were wanting to really get some land. And, you know, I don't know if you know, it's the same in Canada. Land here is crazy. Property in general is crazy. And now we have grandbaby number 2 on the way in October. So we decided, why are we trying to get land with all the work that comes with it, with, if it's me, all the animals that will come with it, when we now have one grandbaby, you know, near us and then one up in Tennessee. And it's like, let's just simplify. Let's just do the easiest thing we can do for the rest of our years so we can be with family. So that's, we bought a place in a little 55 plus community. And
oh my God, oh my gosh.
It's a little fixer-upper. So we're going to, you know, play around with that, and which isn't easy, but it'll be fun.
It'll be fun. No matter where you go or what you do, you adapt to the cycle of that part of your life that you're in. And I think this simplicity will support that cycle.
Yes.
Very important. I mean, for myself, I've just come off 40 acres of land for the last cycle, the decade, and gravitated to the condo and then the townhouse to accommodate the grandkids, but it's so much easier. I had cows, sheep, horses.
That would be
not
so
on my own. And it sounds wonderful. It is.
But it's a lot of work.
You know, I think it's the dream for so many people, but so many people don't realize the work that is involved. So if you don't live within a good community, within that farming community, it is overwhelming. And the farm part of the property was secondary to the retreat. So for 10 years, it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And now it's easy.
Yeah. Easy is best.
Easy. Yeah. So what else has
Well,
been going on?
I think, Allison, we should talk about your get together yesterday. And we thought with that, we talk about self-love and how important that is right now for people to really step in to their divine self and loving themselves.
One of my beautiful soul sisters and I held a little mini retreat type gathering in St. Pete yesterday. And we gathered a bunch of women, and actually one of them brought her husband with. It was beautiful. And it was a self-love goddess Mandela gathering. And we got together and we focused on self-love. There was a lot of sharing, a lot of learning coming out of that sharing. A few of the interesting themes in the gathering yesterday was about there are 18 women present, about 6 or 7 of them had quit drinking within the past year, which was very interesting.
Yeah.
And everybody there just really, really struggled. One gal was so challenged at self-love that she cried the whole time.
Okay.
I mean, it was beautifully supported, and everybody was assisting everybody else and holding space. And it just warms my heart so much to think about it. But seeing that was just like a smack in the face of, oh my gosh, there is so much lack when it comes to self-love. There's so much misunderstanding in the importance of it and what it carries for the human. And I thought maybe we could speak to that today and kind of make it the focus of our talk, because it goes way beyond that group.
It's a wonderful topic. I just had a couple of healers here. I spent a couple of nights. One of them is here on a regular basis. I call her a peacekeeper. She holds sacred space. And the other healer, I haven't really done any work with for about 10 years. And I was surprised at the lack of knowledge, not wisdom, but the lack of knowledge, or the lack of remembering the knowledge that was expressed 10 years ago. So if we don't keep consistent or constant with our practice, it is easily forgotten or put aside. And so with that in mind, we sat in channel. I always start in a meditative state. We bring in all our divine gods, goddesses, whoever works with us on a constant, continual basis. And we went through the chakra system again, which will support the topic, because if you have not healed that root chakra, the sacral chakra, the solar plexus chakra, it is very difficult to rise and link the heart chakras. And that is where the self-love is coming. So we need to learn, if we're willing, how to love the shadow. We all hold shadow. We all hold the spectrum of light within us. And with I'll keep it really simple. And this is what I did with the women. With the root-based chakra, it was as simple as a wiggle, jiggle, shuffle, like get up and move the body, shake it out, and shuffle the feet so you feel your feet firmly planted on the earth. And then go outside for 5, 10, 20-minute walk, whatever you can afford to do. The second, sacral chakra, is where the majority of the pain and suffering is coming from, especially for women who have lived hundreds of thousands of lifetimes in pain and suffering. Just hold that thought. No, here we go, Lucy. Lucy's in timeout. That's my dog.
Oh, good. I'm glad it's not that little one in timeout.
I'm glad it was the dog and not Abby. Okay, you go play. Good. Or you can sit, because all my grandchildren, they sit with me when I'm in satsang. They listen and they love it. So I'm just referring back to the sacral plexus chakra, which is all about procreation. It's the womb, whether it's male or female, we all hold an energetic womb. And all of these past lifetimes, for women in those lifetimes, were experiences of pain and suffering through various forms of death. And so what I ask women to do is to say a prayer. This is where Anne comes in. She's got 1,300, 1,400 prayers that we could all explore together. But the simplest one is the Ho'oponopono prayer. I am sorry, please forgive me. I thank you, I love you. And so whenever we have that trigger or that anxiousness or that exchange in relationship, or that thought that's negative, we can say that prayer very quickly 3 times. And that just lifts it and moves it to a location where it can be healed by the divine. We don't need to know where it goes. We can say it moves through a portal, which it does, but we don't need to know specifically which portal. And so the forgiveness is not only for the victim or the victimee, like both need healing on both sides, both need forgiveness on both sides. As much as I have been, I'm just going to give this as an example. If I've been the victim, I've been the victimee. So I have hurt people as well as been hurt. And in this lifetime, we have brought those patterns forward. All those repetitive patterns that were not healed in past lifetimes have been brought forward into this lifetime so that we can heal it and dissolve it. So it no longer is part of our journey. It might be part of the memory, but it's not part of the journey. And so that simple Ho'oponopono prayer will just clean it out in the wink of an eye. And then we can move up the chakra system into the solar plexus, which is our will to live, our will to give, our will to take. It's really the power that we are. So if we can take that power back, and the power is, again, a movement. Movement moves. And so I won't show you, but I ask everyone to stand tall with their feet hip width apart, knees slightly bent, hands on the hip, and then they bend slightly and they give that warrior, huh, and we have that sound come from the belly, the deepest part of the belly. And you can do that as often as you need to. You bend slightly, huh, huh, huh. And so you are claiming your power. You're taking your spiritual warrior back. To end with that, you stand tall, you raise your arms up to the sun, and you feel the sun goddess. The sun comes through and it heals the body and it creates that power, gives that power back to you. All of this is very, very important, that the first, second, and third chakras are not blocked, not stagnant, that they're cleansed in the morning and at night before you go to bed, so that you can move up into the heart chakra. Just below the heart chakra, at the base of the sternum, is what I call a temporary chakra, which looks like an onion. I use the visualization of an onion because it's super easy to imagine. And each time that we have an experience that triggers us, if we allow ourselves to do a prayer, to give a prayer, to move the body, it will peel the onion, which holds these repetitive patterns or repetitive memories. We want all the memories peeled away until there's nothing left except a tiny little seed. That seed is a God consciousness that is then it's removed from the physical body and placed into the soul, into the Akashic record so that when you do cross over, when you pass over, you can review it then, but it's not interfering with your life in this moment. These are all simple tools. So if you're having a negative thought, you can use an elastic band just to remind you to wash it away, to peel it away, to rub it away, and to forgive it. To use that simple prayer and forgive that exchange with that person. Not easy. We're not asking anyone to forget. We're asking everyone to forgive so that we can live in the heart. Now, how can we live in the heart if we don't love ourselves? And I'm a great example for that because my life was beautiful and yet a challenge like everybody else's. And so there came a moment in time when I recognized I have to stop lying. I need to be honest with myself and I need to be honest with others. There came another time in my life where I went, I need to love myself. How do I do that? And so I was given the wisdom and told to create a phrase, a mantra, a chant, whatever it is that is pure to yourself, whatever is your truth and a constant truth. And that for me was, I am a good person. Everything else to me was fraudulent or no, that doesn't fit. But I knew deep down that I am a good person. And so I would repeat that mantra every single day, hundreds of times a day, sometimes 10 times a day, other times. And one morning I woke up, I looked in the mirror and I went, oh my God, I love myself. I have arrived. There it is. But it was a constant 2-year experience. The spiritual journey is not meant to be the blink of an eye. It's not meant to be a silver platter. It's not a test. It's never a test, but it's an experience, an experiential journey where we're waking up slowly, trying to remember who we are at soul level rather than personality, ego level. But at the same time, we have to love the ego, love the shadow, love the personality, because we all make mistakes. And how do we get there? So this is the journey of moving from the base chakra, root chakra, up into the heart, so that we can eventually move into the thymus chakra and connect with the divine. But until we love ourselves, how can we connect fully with the divine? There might be moments, but how do we live with the divine every single breath of every single day? First, we need to love ourselves. So you are absolutely 100% right.
Alleson, are you going to talk or you want me to?
You can. Well, we actually, before you joined us, Joy, Anne and I were talking a little bit about part of self-love is also embracing the human body that we've been given. And you have to take care of it. I liken it to a car. It's like the wheels could be falling off and it's running out of oil. And it's like, how is that going to serve you? So yes. Anne and I have been on a health journey the past couple months, and it's really brought forth the importance of taking care of that vessel. It truly yes. is a sacred temple.
And I agree. It is a sacred temple, but unless you love yourself, you can take care of that sacred temple, but it won't be enough.
Absolutely.
Well, and I can speak to that because when I got on this journey, I was in super good shape because in my trauma, I could go to workout class. That was number one on my schedule. Mm-hmm. But I was just so sad inside. So when I woke up, I just totally fell out of balance with my body. So I'm getting back into that. So Allison just said, "Oh my God, your face looks completely different," because she didn't know me before. And I sent another picture to my friend Audra, and she's like, "Oh my God." I was like, "This is what I used to look like." So it's like, I don't know why I had to go through to pull back into balance, but for some reason I had to go through it. I don't know exactly, but I've done a lot of channeling about the toxicity in our environment and our lotions and our shampoos and our food and all of that. So the protocol that we're following is in alignment with that. So, I mean, I can speak for Alleson because we talk about it every day. It's shifted our energy completely. And since I've been off of work, I had a lot of freedom with my schedule. So we both have been waking up at sunrise, which has been instrumental in creating the energy that has basically created a new pattern. I had a whole learning in patterns. Like if you want to shift your life, it starts with one tiny micro choice. And for people who don't love themselves, perhaps the first choice is to sit in silence for 5 minutes a day and adhere to 5 minutes of silence until they can go beyond that. But none of us got here just by, them tapping us on the shoulder and saying, follow me. And then you said shadow. And since I'm a newbie, when I used to hear shadow, I didn't want to acknowledge that, right? Like, oh my God, I don't have anything dark in me, because that's the perfectionism that's not loving themselves, right? So the shadow just seemed to be even scarier to me when I don't already love myself because I'm trying to be so perfect. So I like to call that the unacknowledged, right? The unacknowledged aspects of us that are coming to the surface in these energies to help us learn. And we're in a movie. So all these humans that are in our lives are showing us what we need to learn, not to intentionally harm us, but to bring to experience what we need to take a good look at so we can be more accepting of ourselves. It's just such an overall journey. It's just amazing because we think we're in humility when we're not stepping in to this self-love. We think we've been taught not to be powerful in what we speak when it's coming from our heart. We're still in a timeline that people get validation from other sources rather than within. The guides taught me that a few years ago, that will be ascended to a new level of consciousness when you do not need outside validation, when you know what your divine heart is speaking to you without need for approval. So it's such a process.
Something you said, Anne,
made me froze for a bit.
Oh, I think it was on your end, Joy.
It is. It just came through.
Okay. Something you said really made me think too, a part of the healing process that's very beneficial is acknowledging the inner child. There's so much time, so many times that I see this little girl, and my husband points this out to me. It's actually kind of sweet. He's like, oh, there's the little you again coming out for validation. And it's like, oh, she does need attention. She does need love. And she needs to know it's okay what she's feeling and doing. And then to take her hand and walk her through it and help her. So it's okay to be that little kid that you once were. Acknowledge those feelings just as much as you acknowledge the shadow and assist them in processing through.
Well, and then I think when you can do that with yourself, you realize that other people could be expressing that same thing to you. Yes. And instead of going into judgment, is we have no idea what's going on in other people's lives. So let's just make the micro choice to keep our mouth quiet and not to judge and just let it flow through, because we don't know. But when I first started channeling, I went to a meditation that they were integrating, like I think they were doing soul retrieval or something. And I was like, I didn't even know what that was or anything. But when I went into the meditation, they showed me as a tiny girl holding the hand of this huge light being. Of course, I didn't know what it was at the time, but they were just giving me the image of how protected I was as a small inner child. And it just sticks with me. And they would show me, they said that I was a child pressing on the glass. If I could just start making these micro choices to love myself and come to wholeness, that I had a whole world out there waiting for me. And it's hard to do, but it's super important.
It's beautiful.
It's one of the hardest things, I think, for the human races, is to love themselves unconditionally, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, and I have a little more to say. I know I said to Alleson, I've gotten a lot of information. So last week, the guides were showing me that the wind carries information, like almost like the wind having a consciousness. So for anyone watching, if you're a channel, they show you pictures to try to give you the lesson, so you can compound it. So they'd show the wind coming down and making a wave pattern. So that's showing me there's information in the wind.
It's in the air. It's because people may think that the wind is movement, but there is wisdom in the air.
Right. So they're showing me that. So I went to one of my friends and I said, what do you think about this, the wind having a consciousness, essentially, just to make it easy? And she said, oh my gosh, like, we'll think our quantum self, our higher self, all of our ancestors, all of that wisdom is a seed that is now blowing in the wind. And then we can breathe it in to expand our own consciousness. So that was just like huge for me to see this wisdom that is this seed is accessible to all humans brave enough to breathe it in and expand their light. So last night there was a storm here. I'm living out at the beach, and literally the wind woke me up with human screams in the wind. So there was a huge collective clearing last night, but that message was last week. And then last night they showed me, I actually heard human voices in that wind as it cleared the consciousness of the earth.
Beautiful.
Wow.
So it's pretty interesting what's happening right now. And I think it's changing pretty rapidly. And the first step is people realizing that they're a divine human and it's their time to love themselves and step into the light.
Yes, absolutely. And if they love the water, if they walk in the water has the same consciousness, only it is a healing consciousness. It's a different consciousness. The trees have a different consciousness, but it still is a consciousness, and it's a communication that resembles our nervous system. So the trees have a nervous system that communicates, and the water has a healing system that heals us and communicates. And even the metal has a very specific consciousness. Once in a while, I'll hear the sound from my scissors saying, I need a rest, give me a rest, or my knives, because they're metal. So everything will speak if we allow ourselves to hear it. I mean, it's there healing us and speaking to us anyway, but when we listen, when we really, really intuitively listen, we can hear it.
Absolutely.
Love it.
So
don't stop there.
Yeah. So let's talk about maybe some simple steps, because Anne and I were talking about this as well. It's so nice to make these conversations very straightforward and simple. because as you're on this journey, you get to learn a lot, and you learn a lot of phraseology that doesn't necessarily resonate with somebody who hasn't been on this path yet, or is just starting this path. So one of my intentions for this show is to communicate things in a very easy to digest way to assist people in that process. So what could we tell people to do if they wish to start the self-love journey and healing?
For myself, I would tell them to go buy Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements. Once they finish that, add the fifth agreement and live with it, and live with it religiously. That would be mine.
That's a good one. And then he's got The Mastery of Love. And I read another one after the fifth agreement. Can you think of what the name of that one is? That was amazing, showing you perspective, because I think the hardest thing is when you get on this journey, you haven't been taught a lot of things about human behavior, even if you're a psychologist or psychiatrist, that a lot of things are mirrored to you that aren't necessarily yours. So it's important if you can learn tools to discern. So I think the Four Agreements is excellent at teaching that. And I think it's important to have a grounding practice that you've already discussed that's as easy as going and sitting outside in bare feet for 5 minutes a day.
Yeah, the wiggle, jiggle, and shuffle.
And for me, I stopped watching television generally about 8 years ago. I encourage disconnecting from network television, but I don't know if people feel comfortable doing that, because you do sort of lose track of what's happening in the world. But for me, it feels more peaceful.
Well, even if people cut it in half, they don't have to cut it off, but at least cut it in half, or stop listening to the news while they're eating. All of that negativity goes into their food. And so they can do it, but they don't have to go a full turkey, cold turkey like yourself. I don't watch it either, but it's just not part of my nature anymore. If anybody is interested in energy healing, then one of the basics is Reiki, and within the Reiki are the 5 principles. Just for today, it's very similar to the Four Agreements. And so some people are inclined to study healing arts, and that's a very good, well-structured, traditional healing art for a beginner, like the Reiki 1, Reiki 2.
I think that's what I started with. And I'm a Reiki master, and Allison's Reiki 2 practitioner. So I think that is amazing, because it shows you the energy that's available for self-healing. And when I started doing that, I got a terrible rash from my heart space to my throat space. So all of those centers were blocked, and they were detoxing, and it happened from doing my daily Reiki practice.
Another thing that I think is super beneficial, and I would do that, and I still do it all the time just because it brings me so much peace, is get out in nature, like really like go to a state park, immerse yourself. I used to go outside into like either to the water or into the forest and just express myself. If I was having a bad day and really upset, I would go out into the forest. I remember once having an argument with someone and going out into the woods, and literally, I swear to God, a pine tree threw a pine cone at my head. And I was out there sobbing and sobbing, and then the pine tree threw the pine cone at my head, and I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? It kind of like brought me back into what's really important here. It was like, hello, wake up.
Well, and I think with this whole embodiment thing, and, clearing all the programs that aren't acknowledged, which I think a beautiful book for that explains it in a very easy way, is The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. and you can learn about your human self and why you like the toilet paper on one side or the toothpaste a certain way. It's not anything tricky. It's just how you're made. So when you can acknowledge it, when those voices come in your head that aren't your own, you can identify them. And once we start being able to identify voices that are creating for the highest good, that's when we can start stepping in to choosing love over fear and over chaos, essentially, and drama. Every little choice to love creates a new pattern that one day will be your new life.
Mm-hmm. And like you spoke earlier, nutrition is part of it. So if people would just eliminate the junk food, the dyed food, the processed food, start with that, they'll feel so much better. It's just baby steps, but those are great tools for beginners. Not easy, but absolutely important. And when it comes to alcohol, wine and beer only, no hard alcohol. When it comes to drugs, marijuana only, nothing else, because it just eliminates the energy system. It drops the energy field so drastically, whereas wine, beer, weed might be 10 to 20%. So you haven't lost yourself completely, but you're still able to socialize with people if that's what you're used to.
I know alcohol, you know, I love wine. It's awesome. But in the past year, alcohol does not resonate with my body anymore. I could have one glass and wake up feeling like I drank a bottle.
Yeah. The body will absolutely tell you when you can no longer have it inhabiting your body.
Sure does.
Yeah. And meditation, you don't have to call it meditation because some people are freaked with the word meditation. So stillness, sitting in stillness, 9 minutes minimum until it becomes a practice, a habit, and then you can double it. Journaling, that's another very valuable tool. Even if it's just a keyword, one word before you go to bed or when you wake up. All of these are simple tools that belong in the spiritual realm.
Or take your journal and look at little Joy or little Anne and write them a love letter. You know, think of yourself as that little 7-year-old and how much they're absorbing and how much they want your attention and how much they want to learn, and write them a love letter, you know, to help them build that self-love that they need. And, you know, it'll eventually mesh together.
Yeah. If they're willing and if they're ready, they can write that bruised or damaged child a letter. They can visualize the storyline around that suffering, and then they can flip the story over and recreate the story to something that is beautiful. They can recreate it, manifest something that's the opposite to the pain and suffering. It's manifestation, visualization, imagination. To Einstein, these were the ultimate gifts.
But we could keep going on this because there's so many aspects. When you are in pain, you can't see that you're ever going to be out of the pain. Right. So we get on these looping patterns of telling ourselves these stories that create more self-hate, where just like we've been saying over and over, and just to reiterate, you just make one little micro choice that changes that looping pattern that's happening in your brain, and say something loving to yourself instead, is the first step into eliminating the pattern that you've been living in. And so it just starts so simply. And in yoga, we do sadhanas, and that's what you're speaking of, Joy. I think that is very powerful for 45 days to set an intention. And you just start with 45, and then hopefully that'll turn into 90. And then hopefully that'll turn your whole life around in 365 days, all by making that tiny little choice that's different than what you're doing right now.
Yeah. And the start is the commitment. The very start is the commitment to the spiritual journey. Once you make that commitment to your spiritual journey, everything falls into place. Whether it's good or bad, it all falls into place. And the bad is not bad. It's the gift that will help you see what needs to shift, what needs to change. And so it's to change the perception.
I think all of us can look back, and everybody watching even, that has been through some sort of a trauma that has gotten them somewhere. And I look back on mine and feel what a beautiful gift they were. What an incredible lesson I learned. But when you're in it, it's hard to feel any self-love at all.
You will when you love yourself. When you absolutely 100% get to the point where you love yourself, it's divine love, you can look at that pain or suffering or that triggering of story and you look at it a different way.
Oh, I'm thinking like let's use divorce as an example. When you're in the middle of it and you haven't gotten to this place on the journey, and you're sitting there, and now this person's either abandoned you or cheated on you or abused you, to recover from that and come into self-love can be very challenging.
Yes. Absolutely.
If anyone watching that needs help with that, I'm an expert on that one. And I just want to say, and I try to explain to people that if you can use the Ho'oponopono, if you can try to see your own heart in your betrayer, you can start making choices that will support a higher timeline for evolution. When you consistently keep clearing this out every full moon, you're writing a note of everyone you need to forgive. When you're consistent with the pattern of letting it out of your system, you can't even remember. I was married for 30 years. That was my whole life. That was 37 years of my life. I'm 57. I can barely remember anything about it. The guides always tell me memory bank severed. This Anne does not even resonate with that other Anne any longer. So it's like you shift to another consciousness that looks back and says, oh my gosh, I needed every one of those relationships and challenging experiences to get me to where I am now. Yeah. So I'll be happy to support anyone that wants to step out of a relationship that involved a betrayal. The guide, I channeled the message about betrayal because I guess I hadn't learned it yet and I kept getting some more. And the guide said that betrayal has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the other person abandoning their values and beliefs and projecting them onto you.
But okay, so I love that. But what about past life experiences where you've been the betrayer?
Oh, certainly. I'm just talking about in this timeline.
Yes.
Clearly, we've all been actors in each other's stories for a long time. So,
so I have a very strong channeled belief that has come through over the last 20 years. And that is that the repetitive patterns that have been brought into this lifetime are here to show us what needs to be healed and dissolved. So you will bring in that betrayal pattern or rejection or loss or abandonment pattern to wake you up and heal it. Yes. But it means that it's a pattern that was repetitive many, many lifetimes, and
Mhm.
you weren't able to heal it in those lifetimes. So we brought it forward. It doesn't mean that you have betrayed. It means that the person who has betrayed you is the greatest gift, who will show you that pattern so that it can be healed. And it's if we can embrace it that way, it's so much softer.
Oh, exactly. That's exactly what
And the
I
other
believe
question, the other part of that, it's just we have contracts with everybody. So obviously your husband, I also hold that pattern of betrayal, or I did. And so it didn't matter who came into my life in relationship. The relationship was about betrayal. And we had contracts between us so that I would be betrayed in order to wake up, embrace it, and heal it.
Exactly. Me too. That's exactly
Yeah.
what happened. And then, I mean, I tell people this all the time. It's almost like once you cleared that lesson, you can't even remember it anymore.
Right.
It's like that just like fell away and you won't even magnetize it again.
And I like
No.
that you brought up abandonment too. That was a big one for me because my
Yes.
dad left us, or my parents split up, and he went far away. And he was like my best pal. And I was the age of your little granddaughter there when it happened. And I felt abandoned. And I carried that with me up until this relationship that I have now. I mean, my husband and I would be at a street fair and he'd walk away to go use the restroom, and I would turn around and I would be furious with him because he left and didn't tell me where he went.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, what is going on here?
Yeah. What is that?
That was, I had to do a deep dive on that one. And anymore, it doesn't matter. It's just like, whatever.
Yeah, you're okay with it. Well, the four predominant that came through were betrayal, loss, abandonment, and rejection. Sometimes there's more than one predominant, but those were the four majors that came through for the people. It's pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah. And think if you're suffering or going through those and you don't love yourself, what a challenge that is.
Yes. Yes. It is not an easy experience here on the Earth planet right now, but everyone that has been invited here is fully capable of moving through these challenges and coming out on top of it all.
What would you both say that would inspire hope in somebody who's feeling in the total dregs of it right now and going, yeah, this is great what you guys are talking about, but I can't even see myself getting to that point?
Well, for myself, I think it's important to tell people to find someone who can help them explore the relationships that are part of that storyline, whether it's past life or present life. Because when we understand it, then we can begin to let it go, heal it. But if we don't understand it, then we get into that hamster wheel and the story just keeps running.
I think seeing somebody for assistance, I think that's what you're saying, Joy.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
you need a therapist, you need a counselor. If you have a friend that's not sick of hearing your story, which I think most of mine got sick of hearing about poor, pitiful Anne, you need to get enough light into your being so that you step out of the victim mode and start planning ahead to see what this taught you instead of what situation you're in because of it, and use that as an opportunity to create a new life for yourself.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Especially if you feel suicidal, you need help. Or if you feel so deeply depressed that you're in despair, you need help.
Yes.
And maybe it's a friend that just takes you to that doctor or facilitator. But people need to extend their hand and ask for help.
Yeah, don't be too proud. Don't be too stubborn or righteous. You just gotta, you'd be surprised at who's there for you if you just say, help me.
Yes, exactly. Mhm.
I think it's a lot of times too, it's people who are trying to be perfect that don't have the courage to be vulnerable. But once you step into the energy of vulnerability and get rid of this fake self that you think you need to be and step into authenticity, your whole life will shift in such a meaningful way that it'll be well worth the pain of letting go of all of these things that you've been holding on to.
Oh, yeah. It's worth it. Mhm.
It's completely worth it. I mean, I maintained many friendships, but the circle of just amazing, beautiful beings like you two and all the other ones that support and vulnerability and with courage, I would have never envisioned it. And it's been the best gift that anyone could have ever given me.
Oh, that's good that you had such a support system. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we have a few minutes left. Let's just talk really quick. I mean, I like this being one solid subject, you know, so people can really kind of take a dive into self-love. But I'd like to touch upon the energies right now that are going on and what you guys are feeling and what you can kind of forecast for the next month or so.
I think that everything is coming out of the closet. Pandora's box is wide open. People are looking for help, answers, direction. You can feel the heat. You can feel it percolating. And it is an unprecedented experience on the planet. We have to allow ourselves an open mind to every aspect of it, whether it's life or death, and anticipate that there is chaos before order, but there is always order after chaos. And if we can let go of the fear, if we can step one baby step into something we love, if we can invite one friend into our life constantly that we trust, we can move forward and embrace this new world, because it is a new world. And if the focus is on the children, if we can't focus on anything else, focus on self and focus on children. They are the future. They are the future. So it's going to be tumultuous, but it's also going to be serendipitous. That is what I feel. Mm-hmm. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Look forward to it. Embrace it. See what happens.
Yeah.
Well, you know, normally I'm out all over the world, so I'm grateful that I had this opportunity to be in one place for now 3 months. So my energy as a grid worker is needed here down in Florida. And so coincidentally, we all started reading A Hypnotist's Journey to Atlantis, which I really didn't know too much about, but clearly that's why I'm down here at the end of Florida at this key to clear the timeline for Atlantis. So I have friends that support me that have more information. So I've been doing a lot of praying and holding space for all of these energies and consciousness that are holding humanity back from clearing. And so I've been doing a lot of grid work, and I know what a grid looks like inside of myself, but I was in yoga the other day, and with my own eyes, I saw a golden web of light in the yoga room. And I'm still excited. Like when I like I'm telling you guys about it. It was like I was like, oh my God, like this is happening. We are all connected. Every human on this planet is in this golden web of light. I've been channeling about it. I've seen it inside of my own heart, but I saw it with my own eyes. And to me, that was the turning point. I'm like, this is happening. This is happening. So I'm super excited. I try not to think too much about how it's going to happen. I try to trust. So I think it's almost like how I explained the timeline of my life shifting. I can't remember. That's what the guides keep telling me. It's going to happen with humanity. We won't even remember this timeline we're in now when we shift to the new timeline. So,
well, and each one of us has our own channeled wisdom. So for myself, I believe that we are in it. And we have been in it since the rebirthing of the Earth Mother. It's just that we're awakening, like we're climbing that proverbial ladder, and each layer opens a new vision or a new experience for us. So everybody's at a different level and different layer and different pocket. And so it is to embrace, like you said, whatever joy, whatever experience of divine you have, and recognize, okay, I believe it now. Like I am in it. I believe it. Here it is. Wow. And share it.
Yeah, I've been
cool.
spending lots of time in nature, and I haven't watched TV since I worked in TV years ago. So I'm kind of in my own blissful little world most of the time, but you know, you see things when you're online and social media, and it just, I'm to the point now where it's amusing, because it's like the movie's getting really interesting right now. What are they going to do next? What's the next attempt? You know, I'm grateful for being in that space of looking at it like the movie that it is, instead of taking it all in as drama I have to live through.
Right. Yes. Yeah, because it shouldn't be difficult. It should be just part of the daily living. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think someone just came through my door. Hello?
It's just me. I'm just saying goodbye.
I have to say goodbye to everybody.
Okay, goodbye. Kisses,
Goodbye.
everybody. See you later.
Thank
Bye.
you.